So whales have captured our imagination for thousands of years. They've been the subjects of stories and legends, songs and artwork ever since humankind went to sea. And if you've had the opportunity to spend any amount of time up close with these amazing creatures, the experience is transformative. My name is Matthew Zimmerman. I'm the CEO of Farsounder, and over the past few years, I've been involved in a number of whale research studies. I want to share with you some of what I've learned, how the yachting industry can play an important role in helping to safeguard these amazing creatures, and how you can get involved. We'll explore some of the risks they face, how we can aid in reducing these risks, and of course, what you and I and all of us here can do. Because once you've been in the presence of these amazing, incredible animals, you'll want to ensure that they can live on in peace forever. So, who here supports whales going extinct? Raise your hand if you are excited for whales to go extinct. No one? Okay, well, that's good. But I have some potentially bad news for you, because so many of the whale populations around the world are endangered, with some of them at critical threat of extinction. Probably everyone here recognizes killer whales, also known as orcas. Okay, technically they're dolphins, not whales, but for today's conversation, that's not important. Southern resident killer whales are extremely endangered, with only 73 left remaining. Gray whales have an amazing endurance, and they make some of the largest annual migrations of any mammal. However, they haven't been able to avoid human threats. We have already hunted to extinction the Atlantic populations, and there's only about 300 remaining of the western gray whales. Sperm whales, one of my favorite whales, with their asymmetric heads and their giant teeth. Well, here in the Mediterranean, the eastern Mediterranean sperm whales, there's only about 250 of those remaining. And of course, the North Atlantic great whales. They make their home off the coast of New England, where I'm from. There's only about 370 of these remaining. With only 70 breeding females, long gestation periods, and decades until they reach sexual maturity, they're one more example of a whale species at extreme risk of extinction. The North Atlantic great whales are one of 4 marine mammals currently experiencing what's known as an unusual mortality event, and this could signal the end of the road for them. The primary threats to these right whales are shipstrike and entanglement, and these are the same primary threats for many of the other great whales. Shipstrike is exactly what it sounds like. It's literally a boat or a ship hitting a whale. Because whales are mammals, they breathe. So all whales spend time floating at the surface where they can be hit. In the best cases, it's not fatal, but it can still impact them by their ability to feed, how they can migrate, and how they can raise their young, all of which can be indirect causes of death. And in the worst cases, it can be fatal. And when a mother is killed, her juvenile will likely die too from neglect. The other leading cause of death is entanglement. As I'm sure you're all aware, we humans leave a lot of junk in the water, and whales can become entangled in this junk. So imagine being caught in potentially thousands of tons of junk. Entanglements can prevent whales from breathing, it can prevent them from feeding, it can cut into their flesh, causing infections, preventing them from caring for their young. Of course, no one wants to see whales suffer from ship strikes and entanglement. However, other than the emotional ties, you may be wondering, why should I care? Well, whales actually play an important role for life here on Earth. Phytoplankton are responsible for producing 50% of the oxygen that we breathe, and they capture about 1/3 of all human-generated carbon dioxide. A primary source of nutrients for these phytoplankton comes from a process called the whale pump. When whales feed at depth, they come to the surface to breathe and poop. And whale poop happens to become a primary food source for these phytoplankton. Additionally, whales feed on krill, which left unchecked would decimate the phytoplankton populations. So whales keep this delicate system in balance. Similarly, whales also transport nutrients from the colder regions where they feed to the warmer regions where they breed, and this process is called the whale conveyor belt. So it's really important in spreading the nutrients around our oceans. So by protecting and regenerating whale populations, we can actually have the same effect as planting billions of trees. It's really nature's way of balancing a delicate and complex ecosystem, and whale behaviors act as a natural carbon control system. Additionally, when whales die naturally, they can still help support our planet's ecosystem. Most whales who die naturally fall to the seafloor, sink to the bottom of the ocean, where they provide nutrients to life on the seabed. And this process is called whale fall. Whale fall can sequester carbon for hundreds to thousands of years. As the carcass decomposes and is eaten by the deep sea animals, that carbon is sequestered into the deep sea ecosystem, preventing it from returning to the atmosphere. So, what can we as an industry and you as an individual do to help with whale conservation? Well, I want to talk about 3 things you can do. First, you can work on reducing risk of shipstrike. You can participate in citizen science efforts, and you can also support active research programs. Let's take a moment to talk about the first one, reducing shipstrike for a moment. The red dot here is the migration path of a single right whale as it makes its way up the east coast of the United States. And the blue dots are all of the commercial vessels with active AIS transmissions. Notice how much traffic there is that must avoid the whales. One of the ways to reduce whale shipstrike is to reduce vessel speed. This gives vessels more time to spot and avoid whales, and in the worst case, if they do hit, hopefully it causes a little bit less harm. Alternatively, if we move vessel routes away from known whale areas, we can also reduce shipstrike without reducing vessel speed. And this approach is being taken by many in the high-speed sailing race community. In last year's Transat race, they moved the finish line about 100 miles offshore so that while racing at high speed, they could avoid the whale migration routes. Similarly, the New York Vendée started about 100 miles offshore, again to avoid those routes. However, speed and routing are not the only ways and not the only tools available. Technology can help too. Many yachts and commercial vessels are being outfitted with various above-water camera systems. Automated watch systems are now starting to be deployed by coupling these cameras with image processing system. And here's an example of a FLIR camera with processing by Charles River Analytics. It's detecting some humpback whales. However, whales spend the majority of their time below the surface, so an above-water camera system can really only catch a glimpse of whales in that brief time when they're at the surface. Underwater sensors, like 3D forward-looking sonars, are a clear complement to above-water sensors. And when coupled together, cameras, radars, and sonars can work together in an even more robust risk reduction system. Here's an example of a sonar from my company, Farsounder. Farsounder sonars are safe for the marine environment, and they're safe for whales. In fact, when I helped found Farsounder nearly 24 years ago, our original motivations were environmental. How can we help vessels avoid hitting rocks, causing oil spills, and avoid hitting whales, producing ship strikes? Of course, installing these systems is a great benefit for that particular vessel, but not every vessel can justify installing a sonar and a camera system. Because of this, I become an active member of the WAVES Task Force, the Whale and Vessel Safety Task Force. WAVES is dedicated to developing an industry-wide, holistic approach to reducing whale ship strike. The WAVES vision is to identify areas of high whale activity and disseminate that to all vessels to be displayed on their NFDs and ECDIS. They plan to achieve this by processing large amounts of whale sightings aggregated from a variety of sources, including shipboard sensors, aerial surveys, satellite imagery, and citizen science observations. This brings me nicely to that second point, citizen science. Citizen science observations are valuable not only for efforts like WAVES, but for a variety of other scientific endeavors. Without widespread data, we can't focus on where to apply these conservation efforts. Two well-known organizations spearheading crowdsourced whale sightings are OceanWise and Whale Alert. Though they have different missions and goals, both offer free mobile apps that allow anybody to provide citizen-sourced observations and receive curated reports of whale sightings. These apps make it possible for crew, owners, and guests to play an active role without adding any specialized equipment to their vessels. Citizen science is something that Far Sounders also actively engaged in. Last year I was on this stage talking about Seabed 2030, which is a global effort to help map the world's oceans and how the yachting community was participating. Far Sounders products produce information like this, where everything in that pile wedge is real time ahead of the vessel, plus we build a map of everywhere we go. Since my talk last year, we've made it even easier for our users to share that map across the fleet with a new cloud service, as well as with Seabed 2030. So they can opt in to anonymously share that map, and in return, get the aggregate map from everybody else. And of course, we provide it also for Seabed 2030. With our latest software updates, we've added whale and trash observation logging. So when you see a whale or you see floating trash, you can push the button in our software, and we will pass that on to the relevant conservation organizations, starting with IC for trash, Whale Alert, and OceanWise for whale observations. Another initiative that I'm particularly proud to be leading is a new whale spotting and safe vessel operating class that will be launched next month. The inspiration for this class was all the things I learned over my years working with whales. And it's not a Far Sounder product class, rather an industry topic class. Topics include how to spot and identify whales and how to avoid whales when operating in areas with them. I've recruited a number of fantastic guest hosts from these organizations to help present the materials, and you can learn more at farsounder.com/whales. For captains and bridge crews taking this class, it will allow them to provide a greater experience to their guests while also increasing safety. And for those interested in the citizen science, a little bit of training goes a long way in enabling you to provide more detailed information to these organizations. Moving beyond simply participating in citizen science, there are also opportunities for yachts to participate in active research projects. If your yacht's owners or guests want to get involved, Seakeepers and Yachts for Science are two organizations that work to match active research projects with vessels at sea, and both have ongoing programs with whales. It's clear that whales need our help, and helping to conserve whale populations is not only important for their lives, but all of ours here on Earth. And the yachting community has an opportunity to make a difference with those small actions and large efforts. So I ask you, how will you help? Now, raise your hand if you've ever seen a whale at sea. Okay, good. If you haven't, keep them up. Raise your hand if you haven't seen a whale, but you would like to. And if you want your children and your grandchildren to be able to see a whale. And raise your hand if you want to prevent these amazing creatures from going extinct. Take a moment to look around, because you are the yachting community and nearly all of you have your hands raised. So I'm confident that you can all find at least some small way to help participate and help save these whales. So I leave you with this one challenge. How will you help? Think about it and act before it's too late. Thank you.